Good afternoon. I am Costa Constantinidis, Chair of the Environmental Protection Committee, and today we are holding an oversight hearing on renewable energy, and we're hearing 8 renewable energy bills and a resolution declaring a climate emergency in the city of New York and calling on immediate emergency mobilization to restore a safe climate.
So some of you may have already heard me say some of this, but it does bear repeating. So Councilmember Ben Kalos, and I believe in climate change. I believe that climate change was caused by humans. I believe that we have a climate emergency. I believe that we as humans must activate across all sectors on every level that we haven't seen since World War II in order to prevent a 6th mass extinction. Today we're holding a hearing on Resolution 864 to join over 657 countries, cities, towns, and villages worldwide that have already declared a climate emergency. Now it's time for New York City, the greatest city in the world, to declare a climate emergency. I'd like to thank many advocate organizations who have worked to make this idea a reality. Christina C. of Extinction Rebellion, who I saw at the Women's March and with whom we've been working ever since, and to the many organizations who are here today: 350 Brooklyn, Extinction Rebellion, Indivisible Nation Brooklyn, One Queens Indivisible, Rise and Resist, Sunrise NYC, Sunrise New York, Fridays for Future, and many others that I may have omitted. I also want to note that the room's capacity is 70. There's at least 90 people just to testify on this resolution.
My name is Christina C., and I'm representing Extinction Rebellion. We're facing unfathomable and unprecedented events related to the climate and ecological crisis. These are issues that will exponentially increase as the planet warms. There are systemic issues that will touch every aspect of our society. Food systems, transportation, and infrastructure are just a few. Whole populations will be affected by this. Our food system is already being affected both by the climate crisis and because our agricultural systems are not built to be resilient in the face of the changing climate and extreme weather that comes with it. Entire swaths of our critical agricultural infrastructure have been destroyed due to flooding in the Midwest. That will undoubtedly affect availability and prices for those crops. This is just one example of the effects of the climate crisis. This city is surrounded by water. What happens when the next Hurricane Sandy hits? The economic impact of continuing to pretend that these things aren't happening will be a much higher cost than putting in the systems to mitigate and adapt. We need systemic change. We need lower consumption. We need to stop using single-use everything. We need to change how we think about convenience. We need to realize how we have become accustomed to having fresh strawberries flown in from the other side of the world so we can enjoy them in the middle of winter, and think about what resources that takes to put them on our table. We need to realize the strain we're putting on the world. The animals we're killing, just by virtue of living the way we do and extracting resources from the planet. I've submitted the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC report, and the UN IPBES report as part of my testimony. The IPCC report is often said to be too conservative, that there are things that will happen that we can't even foresee, and that they will have compounding effects on what we are already dealing with. Solutions and actions must be proportional to the issues at hand. These are systemic issues that need inclusive, holistic, systemic solutions. We need to be acting as if this is an emergency, because it is. We need to state a much more ambitious timeline for 100% net zero greenhouse gas emissions. We need legally binding legislation to get us there. We need to create mechanisms for real participatory democracy. This is an issue that affects everyone and every system, and the voices of everyone need to be heard, including the people who will be disproportionately affected by the climate crisis, as well as experts dealing with these issues every day. We need to take responsibility for the health of the planet and realize that our choices matter. This isn't going to be easy. It will be uncomfortable, but we must be willing to accept the necessary actions that need to be taken if we want to change the trajectory of where we're headed. The climate and ecological crisis will come to our door no matter what. We can pretend it's not happening, wait for the destruction, or we can face this head on, mitigate and adapt for the coming changes. We are New York City. We can and must lead the way. Thank you.
First, I'll say when I was 17, I wasn't able to testify at a city council hearing, so I'm beyond impressed, and I think everyone in this room shares how impressed we are with your ability to speak and speak so well today. So thank you for being here.
Good afternoon, Chairman Constantinides and committee members. Thank you for welcoming us here today and listening. My name is Jonathan Menard. I'm a filmmaker, resident of Greenpoint, Brooklyn, with Extinction Rebellion. We are facing an ecological crisis of apocalyptic proportions, with rising temperatures rendering the planet uninhabitable to all life. We don't want to be the generation who witnessed the death of 1 million species and did nothing about it. We need to be a voice for the voiceless animals and plants on the brink of extinction, and we need to protect the biosphere so our children and grandchildren will have a safe place to live. In terms of biomass, people make up just 0.01% of life on Earth. And yet, in our brief history as the dominant life form, human civilization has degraded 75% of the world's land, displaced 83% of the wildlife population, and wiped out over 680 vertebrate species. And the die-off rate is accelerating. According to the United Nations 2019 IPBES report, that's the Intergovernmental Science Policy Platform on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services, 145 international experts concluded that in the coming decades, we could see 1/4 of all mammals, over 1/3 of amphibians, and 1/4 of plant species annihilated, gone forever, and we are next. We're in the middle of a mass extinction event on a scale not seen since the day the dinosaurs died. But this time, we are the asteroid. Scientists have traced the principal causes of biodiversity loss to human activities: agriculture, deforestation, overfishing, pollution, and climate change. No single person is to blame, but we are all responsible. We don't want to live in a world without natural habitats. We don't want to live in a world without wild animals. In fact, we can't survive without them. If they go, we go, because our existence vitally depends on healthy, self-sustaining ecosystems. This ecological crisis, fueled by greenhouse gases, is the deadliest catastrophe in history, and if we ignore it, it will end human history. It's imperative that we face this global emergency head-on with total honesty, unwavering commitment, and immediate action, because we are running out of time. In New York City and the United States, there's a groundswell of concerned citizens peacefully demanding that our government treat the planetary crisis with the urgency necessary to tackle the existential threat. We are the cause of the problem, but we are also the solution. Putting out this fire will require cities, states, and federal governments around the world passing legislation, mobilizing resources, and working with communities to avert the worst-case scenario. In 1979, a report by the US National Academy of Sciences declared that the doubling of CO2 in the atmosphere would drive global temperatures up by 1.5 to 4.5 degrees Celsius. In the 40 years since this dire forecast, the federal government has consistently failed to take action and neglected its responsibilities, leaving our future and that of the other 99.99% of life on Earth in profound peril. Today, the evidence of this ecological crisis is undeniable and irrefutable. Faced with these hard truths, we have a duty to act. We need to commit to a timeline of net zero greenhouse gas emissions in the next 10 years or less, and we need participatory democracy to address these complex challenges. In the year 2030, when you were asked, where were you when your constituents sounded the alarm? Where were you when there was still time? What will you say? Help us make 2019 the year that everything changes. We need New York City to take the lead and declare a climate emergency. Our survival depends on this resolution.
Guys, we really need to do this. We can't stop for applause after every speaker. So we have 40 of you guys. So let's just keep it like this, okay? Thank you.
Next is Resolution 864A, sponsored by Councilmember Ben Kallos, which would declare an emergency, a climate emergency, and it calls for accelerated actions to address the full range of ecological threats we are facing. San Francisco and other cities around the world have already issued climate emergency declarations, and New York City joins those cities today. I want to thank the staff that worked on this, Nadia Johnson, Ricky Chawla, and Samara Swanson.
My name is Councilmember Ben Kallos. I believe in climate change. I believe that humans have caused climate change, and I believe that we have a climate emergency. We must activate across all sectors on a scale we haven't seen since World War II in order to prevent this, the sixth mass extinction on our planet. Today, we vote on Resolution 864 to join over 657 other countries, cities, towns, and villages worldwide to declare a climate emergency. We are standing up to climate change deniers, including Donald Trump, who's called climate change a hoax and withdrew our country from the Paris Climate Accord. Today, New York City will be the largest city in the world to declare a climate emergency. Take that, London. I want to thank Environmental Protection Chair Costa Constantinides for being a co-prime sponsor on this resolution and for scheduling a hearing within a month right after passing the groundbreaking historic Climate Mobilization Act. Thank you to a bunch of staff and all of the advocates. I'm out of time.
Thank you, Councilmember Kallos. We now have Councilmember Constantinides.
You know, whether we want to call this a crisis, we need to call it an emergency. And today, this resolution makes a firm declaration that we are in a climate emergency and that our actions need to be hastened and accelerated. I want to thank the Speaker for allowing us to vote on the resolution today and for his strong environmental leadership as we passed the Climate Mobilization Act. And of course, I want to thank Ben Kallos, the lead sponsor of the resolution. As we continue to act, we need to continue to start using words and declaring things as they are, and we are most certainly in an emergency right now when it comes to climate, and we have to treat it as such. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your leadership. We will now read today's resolution into the record. Members who wish to vote against or abstain on this resolution should register your vote with the clerks at the dais. Resolution 864A, an amended resolution declaring a climate emergency and calling for an immediate emergency mobilization to restore a safe climate. All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it.